Okay, now you should have a general understanding of the major terrestrial biomes and ecosystem characteristics of Canada, at least on a very large scale. Now we're going to look at some of the things that affect our aquatic ecosystems. There are basically two aquatic biomes in Canada. We have the saltwater biome, which would be the oceans that surround Canada on three sides, and the freshwater. And the freshwater would include all the lakes, the rivers, the streams. All of that combined together would make up the freshwater ecosystem. Within the freshwater, those are biomes, I guess. The freshwater ecosystems, though, within each individual one, there are some characteristics that you should know about the water. So let's talk about those. So in your notes, you have these four listed, and let's define each one. Let's fill out these in your notes. Feel free to pause anytime you need to write this stuff down. And then I'm going to draw a picture at the bottom, and you should draw the same picture at the bottom of your page to help represent what these four are so that you understand them a little more. So first, the littoral zone is the area of the lake where light reaches the bottom of the lake in sufficient quantities to allow for photosynthesis to occur. The limnetic zone is the open water where there is sufficient sunlight for photosynthesis. But you'll notice here it's open water. This is where light is present, but it's not reaching the bottom of the lake. The profundal zone is the deeper water where there's insufficient light for photosynthesis. So we've gone so deep now that it's too dark. There isn't enough light for plants to grow, or even things like algae or things like that to undergo photosynthesis. And then the benthic zone is basically just what we would call the bottom. So along the bottom of that body of water, you could call that the benthic zone, although typically the benthic zone is used to describe the bottom of the areas of like the profundal zone, the really, really deep water kind of an area. So let's take a look at this and see if I can help make this make a little bit more sense to you. So in your notes, you're going to want to draw kind of a body of water like this. So here's some land. We'll drop that down like this. And we're going to need some water. Like that. All right. So when we're talking about this, the main characteristic that sets these apart is light. So where light penetrates is what separates these different zones. So let's say that light, for example, penetrates about this deep into the water. And that's as far as it can go. Then that could be factored based on what the water's like. Is it kind of murky? Is it clear? Those would all play a factor into this as well. But you'll see that it kind of splits our lake into some distinct parts. Right? We have this area here where the light is reaching the bottom. There's this light area here where the light is penetrating the water but not reaching all the way to the surface or the bottom of the lake. And then there's the deeper parts of the water where the light doesn't penetrate. So this is what separates our zones. So this first zone right here is the littoral zone. And if you've got room, you can write that in there. This next part here is the limnetic zone. And the last one would be the profundal. So hopefully that makes the notes make sense, right? We've got the area over there where light does reach the bottom. So you might see plants growing in this area because the light reaches the bottom, and so they can actually grow. That could be seaweeds, mosses, things that float on the surface of the water, lily pads, right? That would all come from the littoral zone. In the limnetic zone, you would have maybe algae, things like that grow, that can do photosynthesis. If we were talking about the ocean, we'd be talking about like phytoplankton. That would all be part of the limnetic zone. The profundal zone would be the parts of the lake where it's too dark. There's no photosynthesis going on here. You might still have not plant life, but animal life there, like fish and organisms that are adapted to that kind of a dark environment. But they would be entirely reliant on the nutrients that entered the profundo zone. It's not making its own. The littoral zone and the limnetic zone would both have producers that allow them to capture solar energy and have that input of energy for the trophic levels. The profundo zone is going to be completely based on sort of what rains down from the limnetic zone to them. So that could be wastes from organisms up there, plankton, or things that have died and are now just drifting down that they're going to feed on, or they're feeding on the other organisms that are down there as well. If you were talking about the benthic zone would basically just be the bottom, right? So all of this kind of bottom layer would be the benthic. So hopefully that helps make those areas make sense. If there's anything there that's unclear, if you have any questions, you could take a look at the textbook if you want to read a little bit more, or ask me any questions that you might have, and I'll try to clear them up for you.